My name is Rachel Odom, and I want to tell you about the 6 weeks a man named Gary Bellman tried to hold my house hostage, and how the paperwork he never bothered to read ended his contracting license for good. I'd saved for 4 years to renovate the kitchen and finish the basement of the house I'd bought on my own after my divorce. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't even a particularly big project, $68,000, a number I knew down to the cent, because every dollar of it had come from overtime shifts and a decade of not eating out. I hired Gary Bellman Construction because his reviews were solid, his bid was fair, and he had a state contractor's license number printed right on his business card, which I now know most homeowners never think to verify. I did. I always verify things. That habit is the entire reason this story ends the way it does. The first 3 weeks went fine. Demo, framing, rough electrical. Then, at the start of week 4, Gary told me the project needed an additional $11,000 beyond our signed contract, citing unexpected structural issues with the 4 joists. I asked for documentation, an inspection report, photos, anything showing what he'd found. He got irritated, told me contractors don't have time to paperwork every board they touch. I paid it anyway, because my kitchen was a plywood subfloor with exposed wiring and I needed it finished before winter. 2 weeks later, it happened again. Another unexpected cost, this time framed as a plumbing issue, another $6,000. And this time, when I pushed back and asked to see the actual permit pulled for the plumbing work, Gary told me something that should have terrified any homeowner, that if I didn't pay by Friday, his crew would have to pause the project indefinitely, leaving my kitchen exactly as it was, subfloor exposed, no working sink, walls open, for as long as it took me to get reasonable. That was the moment I understood what was actually happening. This wasn't a contractor hitting genuine, unexpected costs. This was a man who had figured out that a homeowner mid-renovation, with her kitchen already torn apart, is one of the most vulnerable people in any negotiation. He wasn't fixing my house. He was holding it hostage in pieces, and he expected me to pay whatever it took to get it back. I want to walk you through exactly what I did next, because I think it's the part people find most satisfying, and it started with something almost embarrassingly simple. I called my state's contractor licensing board and asked one question. Had a permit actually been pulled for the plumbing work Gary claimed required $6,000 in emergency costs? The answer was no. No permit had been filed, which meant either the plumbing work Gary billed me for had never actually happened, or it had happened without a permit, which in my state is itself a licensing violation serious enough to trigger an investigation on its own. I didn't confront him yet. Instead, I spent the next 4 days building a file. I requested copies of every document Gary had submitted to the city for my project: permits, inspection sign-offs, change orders. I compared them against every invoice he'd sent me. I found that this structural joist issue from 3 weeks earlier had never been reported to the city inspector, which was required by our county's building code anytime a licensed contractor identifies a structural deficiency during permitted work. I found that his liability insurance, the policy number listed on our original contract, had actually lapsed 6 weeks before we signed, meaning I had been operating for over a month under the false belief that my project was insured when it was not. Then I found the piece that mattered most. Buried in the state licensing board's public complaint database, which anyone can search, and which almost no one thinks to, were 2 prior complaints against Gary Bellman Construction, both alleging the exact same pattern: mid-project demands for undocumented emergency costs, threats to halt work if unpaid, and unpermitted work billed as completed. Both complaints had been closed as unresolved. Homeowner declined to pursue, which told me those homeowners had likely just paid him to make it stop, the same way I almost did. I filed a formal complaint with the licensing board, attaching the lapsed insurance documentation, the missing permits, and the invoice history showing undocumented change orders totaling $17,000 above our signed contract. I also, on the advice of a friend who works in construction law, sent Gary a certified letter, not a threat, just facts, informing him that I was aware his insurance had lapsed during the period he performed uninsured work on my property, that no permit existed for the plumbing work he'd built, and that I expected the project either completed under our original signed contract terms or the return of all funds paid beyond it. Gary had no idea any of this was happening until the letter arrived, because he built his entire business model on the assumption that homeowners mid-renovation don't have the time, energy, or knowledge to check permit records and licensing databases while their kitchen sits in pieces. He assumed I would fold the way, apparently, at least 2 other people had. Instead, 3 days after he received my letter, the state licensing board's investigator called to inform me that my complaint, combined with the 2 prior unresolved ones, had triggered a formal investigation, and that Gary's license was being suspended pending review specifically because of the lapsed insurance. Operating uninsured is one of the fastest ways to lose a contractor's license in my state, since it puts homeowners at direct financial risk if anyone gets hurt on site. Gary called me the next day, not to apologize, but to tell me I was going to regret making this difficult, since without his crew, my house would sit unfinished. He still didn't understand that the investigation wasn't something I could call off even if I wanted to. The state doesn't rescind a license suspension because the homeowner who filed the complaint feels sorry for the contractor. He'd spent so long treating homeowners as leverage that it never occurred to him one might simply document her way out of his reach entirely. I hired a new, fully licensed and insured contractor to finish the project under a fresh contract, using the $17,000 Gary was legally ordered to return to me as part of the licensing board's settlement terms, which included restitution to all 3 homeowners who had filed complaints once the investigation connected our cases. My kitchen was finished 6 weeks later. It has a working sink. The floor joists, which turned out to have never needed the emergency repair Gary billed me $11,000 for in the first place, are exactly as sound as they were the day he tore up my subfloor. Gary Bellman Construction's license was permanently revoked 4 months after my complaint. He tried to keep working under a new business name, which is illegal in my state without disclosing the revocation, and which is exactly the kind of thing that shows up the moment anyone, a future client, a licensing investigator, anyone at all, checks a database he never expected people to check. He thought a torn-up kitchen would make me desperate enough to stop asking questions. He had no idea that a torn-up kitchen was exactly the reason I started asking all of them.